Amazing. Wow, what an introduction. I like that. That was a bit fancy. Brilliant. Well, it's wonderful to see you this morning. And I'll just explain who I am. My name is Sarah. I am part of the staff at Alive Church in Lincoln. But I have been part of this church for a very long time. You just might not realize it. I have actually been here probably on and off since I was about 1 year old, maybe earlier. I'm related to a significant portion of the congregation, so it is an absolute honor to be here this morning. Actually, it's an honor to be asked whenever I'm asked to speak anywhere, but when it's somewhere that knows you and somewhere that your family are part of, then it really is a privilege to be here. And as the video just showed us, that we are carrying on the series today of Habits of a Healthy Heart. Habits of a Healthy Heart. And you looked at over the last few weeks, the church here has been looking at habits that will heal your heart, heart reset, or when less is better. And I was sent the title of this week's message, and that title in itself is a challenge. Don't quit too soon. Don't quit too soon. In a world where it seems like the aim is instant gratification, where the world is actually, it's not that popular really to have perseverance in our world today, is it? That there is actually a persuasive agenda, I believe, for us to want to be fast, want quick answers, and actually the idea of perseverance is not that popular. And actually, if you look at it, it really is. If you think about the diet culture, we want the fast diet. We want the instant weight loss. We don't want to wait with nutrition. We don't want to think about exercise. We want Amazon. But if it's Amazon Prime only, and only if that is like next day delivery, if we have to wait a little while, then we're really not that bothered. There is an instant gratification, which I believe is trying to draw us away from what the Bible teaches, which is consistency and persistence. And so this idea of don't quit too early in a world where instant gratification is pushed is a challenge. It's countercultural. I have 4 children. I've been married for 18 years. Dave and I have 4 children. We have a 15-year-old. You're all trying to age me now, aren't you? Trying to work out how old I am. Yeah, 21 plus a bit. We have 4 children. I have a 15-year-old. I have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 4-year-old. Our 4-year-old Sophia is what we call our exclamation mark at the end of a sentence. She is the one who you know when she's in the room. She came out we call her the "it is finished" moment. She is a wonderful little girl, but she will be a mighty woman of God one day. She'll be a leader in her generation, I have no doubt. But somebody needs to come and help me parent the toddler version of this mighty woman of God. It is a challenge. And she was born in September 2020. That was a fun year, wasn't it? So we found ourselves in September 2020 not only homeschooling 3 children in 3 different key stages, but we thought we would add sleep deprivation to the mix. And so we have found from the beginning that she came out letting everybody know she was there. And when I was preparing this message today, I was reminded of an instance with Sophia when the big kids were at school, and it was just me and her. And we were chatting about what we wanted to do for the day, and I said, how about we go to the park? Why don't we go make a day of it? Let's have a picnic together. And she was thrilled at this idea. So she ran around the house getting all the bits. She had a bag that she was filling with endless toys to take to the park. She helped me make the picnic, and we gathered everything together, and she even went and got her trainers and chose her outfit and brought my shoes along as well, so that she chose everything and was really excited about the preparation. We get out of the front door, I lock the front door, bend down to scoop her up, and that is when she flipped. She went from being this wonderful, chatty, excited toddler to being furious with me, absolutely bright red in the face, arms flailing, angry. And she was cross with me because in her mind, when we left the house, we were going to walk to the park. But me scooping her up and taking her to the car was actually not what she had intended for that to happen. She didn't understand that I saw that the park was a 45-minute walk away across 2 major roads, but the park is a 5-minute drive. And so as I'm trying to battle and reason with a very unreasonable toddler, putting her into her car seat, tightening up, she's pulling away at me, trying to get her arms out of the car seat, and there's a faffing around. I go back and get the bag because I dropped it in the process, get in the car, and off we go, and she is letting me know she is not happy. And I was reminded of this story because I was reminded thinking, how many times have we behaved like Sophia did in the car? That we understood that God called us to something, and we understood the preparation stage. We totally got if God has called you to become a pastor and you spend 3 years in theology school, we understand the preparation. But when we leave theology school and then the only time we feel that we're actually sharing the word of God is to our friends in a job we never expected we would take, we start to wonder, should I quit too soon and try and get out of this car seat? Is it, if God has called you to be a parent and yet you feel this burden to be a mother or a father, but you're facing infertility, you feel frustrated and there's a crossness about you. You feel like, God, I thought I heard you clearly, but I feel like we're going in a different direction. Every time I speak, I try and remind people, because quite often people will say, yeah, but I've not heard from God in a while. And I try and remind them, yeah, but when I was in the car with Sophia and she was shouting and screaming and telling me what she wanted, she wouldn't listen to what I wanted to tell her and explain what was going on. I would love to challenge you this morning. This is the best way you can hear from God. That if you were to look at your screen time on your phone and compare it to how much time you spent in the Word of God, listening in His presence, how long have you sat in the presence of God asking Him, God, I don't understand what we're doing at the minute, but I trust you. Would you just talk to me and tell me what it is that you think is going on? What is it I need to know? What am I missing about this part of my journey? Challenge you to spend some more time in His presence. You see, the reality is, a message like this about not quitting too soon, there is a number of examples I could have given today. We could have spoken about Noah, who had a message from God, who He told him to build an ark, despite the fact that they didn't even know really what rain was. He spent decades building this ark, despite the ridicule of his friends, until nothing made sense about the journey until the rain came. Or we could have spoken about Joseph, who shares a dream with his brothers, who then, because of this sharing of this dream that God had given him, they decide they're not happy with this. They beat him, throw him in a pit, and sell him to be for slavery. And then when he is sent over for slavery, he then finds himself through no fault of his own in prison, until one day he's promoted to the second in command in Egypt, and all of a sudden the journey makes sense. We could have spoken about Hannah who was barren, Hannah who didn't have children that she longed for. Despite people around her seemingly answered prayers around her, she was carrying this vision but not carrying the baby until she conceived Samuel. Or how about Paul? Paul has a radical transformation, radical encounter with Jesus. His life is transformed, and yet every time he goes anywhere, he's met with persecution. He is beaten within an inch of his life. He is shipwrecked. He is bitten by a snake that jumps out of the fire. I think, actually, if I'm honest, I might quit at that point. He finds himself in prison. He finds himself facing execution, and yet he doesn't quit. And because he didn't quit, we have a significant portion of the New Testament today. Or how about Jesus? in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he's on his knees, crying out to God, is this what you want me to do? Is this what you want me to do? Because if it is, I will do it. If Jesus had quit, what would that mean for us today? You see, we're going to read from Genesis 22 in a moment. And this is a story, it's entitled, Abraham is Tested. And I love this story because there's a background to it. Abraham has been married to Sarah for a number of years. At this point, let's just say they're old. They are old. They are advanced in years. And they've had this desire on their heart for many years to have a child. But they haven't had one. And then one day, Abraham is called out by God out of the village and told to look up to the stars. And God says over him, he says, these are as numerous as your descendants. And Sarah overhears this and laughs. She's like, yeah, that ship has sailed. That's not going to happen. And then she goes about doing something that I find quite relatable. She tries and fix the miracle for God. She tries to okay, if there's this word over my life, over our life, then I'm going to see what I can do to fix this for God. And she presents an idea to Abraham that it would be, she has this great servant called Hagar. And actually, she thinks it'd be really good if they got together and they had a baby. Funnily enough, Abraham didn't disagree. He went along with this idea and they had a baby together. They had Ishmael. But when Ishmael is born, Sarah is hurt. She is broken. She's anxious and angry and frustrated. There is bitterness and tension because this wasn't the plan that God had for them as a married couple. This was her trying to fix it herself. You see, we're about to read Genesis 22, and this gives it away that this prayer becomes fulfilled. That had she just waited that little bit longer, she would have seen the answer to her prayer because Isaac was born. Sarah gave birth to Isaac. And as we read chapter 22, I believe there are 4 points within this chapter that give us an idea of how to behave, what we can look to do in seasons that are hard. Because let's be real, that's part of our life. There are times in our lives that are hard. But I believe we can find 4 points here to look to during those seasons. So if you have your Bibles with you, we'll read from Genesis 22. If not, it should be hopefully on the screen. It's quite a long chapter, so just bear with me. Settle in. Genesis 22. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain that I will show you." Early the next morning, Abraham got up, loaded his donkey, and took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey, while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac. And he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father?" "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "The fire and the wood are here," Isaac said, "but where's the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And then when the 2 of them went on together, when they reached the place that God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him there on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. "Do not lay a hand on the boy," he said. "Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, "The Lord will provide." And to this day it is said, "On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided." The angel of the Lord called Abraham from heaven a second time and said, "I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me." You see, this verse, this chapter, sounds quite challenging, doesn't it? In fact, in some respects, it's quite hard to relate to in our modern society, the idea of God asking this of Abraham. And yet I believe that there are principles, as I said, that we can take from this chapter and apply today. You see, when you start this chapter, and it starts with God calling Abraham. Now, Abraham has just had an answer to his prayer in Isaac, in the birth of Isaac. And so I imagine that when God calls Abraham in this moment, Abraham's like, "Yeah, I'm here. God, what is it? What are we doing next? I'm ready. What is it you have for me?" And then he says, "I want you to take your son, your only son, to the region of Moriah and sacrifice him there." But what's happening here? It says your only son. We know that he's got two sons. He's got Ishmael and Isaac. God's not having a bad day. God doesn't have a bad day. It's not, he's God. So what is it that he's saying? You see, I believe what he's saying in this moment is, I want you to take your blessing. Not the one you tried to create yourself, the one I gave you. I want you to take the gift that I gave you, and I want you to take it to sacrifice it to me. I think I might have had some questions. I think in that scenario, I would have said, "Are you sure? I just got this one. I've been working really hard. There ain't going to be any more, I'm sure of it, with Sarah. God, this is the promise that you gave me. Remember the stars in the sky, the descendants? Are you sure you don't want me to take the other one? I've got another son. I can take that one." But Abraham doesn't question. He doesn't question once. He simply gets up early the next day and chops wood. He chops wood, he prepares, he gets the donkey, he gets his servants, and he gets his son, and they head off. You see, point one, I believe, is to entrust God. Trust God with what he has entrusted you. That's not an easy thing to do. If he has trusted you with it, we need to learn to trust him that he spoke this over you. You see, Abraham, Isaac, and the servants, they set off on this journey, this 3-day journey to the region of Moriah. And when they get there, God reveals which mountain it is for them to go up to. And at that point, Abraham does something else that's a little bit confusing. He turns to the servants and says, "You stay here. You stay here with the donkey, and we will go and we will worship and we'll come back to you." You see, in the natural, that doesn't make sense, because they've already walked 3 days carrying the wood, the weight of this journey on their shoulders between them and the donkey. And now the next part of the journey is up a mountain, and they're going to halve the amount of people carrying the load. So what is it that Abraham is doing in this moment? You see, I believe that quite often, sometimes we allow influence to come into our lives that doesn't actually have the authority to be there. I think he's looking at the servants and saying, "You are not going to understand the next part of this journey. You don't have the spiritual maturity in this moment to understand what it's going to take for me to climb this mountain and do what God has asked me to do. I'm going to need to cut this. You're going to need to stay here." Too often, I think in modern society, we look for influences outside instead of sitting in the presence of God with the focus of God as our first thought. He's looking at these two servants and saying, I know that it's going to take some serious focus on my part right now. I really don't understand this part of the journey. I don't know what God is asking me to do, but I trust him, and I know that you can't handle this. You see, if they had come on this part of the journey, they may have tried to stop him. They may have been confused. They may have tried to sort the problem out and restrain Abraham. They may have tried to rescue Isaac in this moment. All that Abraham knew is that they're not ready for this part of the journey with me. So they need to stay. Point two, is to be careful with what you are giving permission to speak into your life. You see, this next part of the journey was not going to be easy. There are times in my life when I have needed focus, that I have had to have the wisdom to cut the external voices to know that I'm going to need to focus so hard right now on what God is asking me to do, because I do not get it. I do not understand the part of the journey I need to focus. And as they're journeying, they're beginning this hard ascent up the mountain. Now the hard questions are starting. You see, Isaac turns to his dad and says, and Dad, I can see the wood. I can see the fire. But where's the sacrifice? Where's the lamb? Point 3. Your words matter. You see, Abraham had an option at this point to speak faith or fear. If he had chosen to speak fear and say to Isaac, actually, Isaac, it's you. You're the sacrifice. That would have done nothing but to bring fear into his life. His words were, I don't know what is going on. I imagine internally him going through this battle of saying, I don't know what's going on, but I am going to speak faith. I'm going to speak to the God that I know. My God will provide. He will provide. He says to Isaac, God will provide the sacrifice. He's like, I'm not moving. My language is going to reflect the God that I know. He will provide. In fact, I don't know if you noticed it, but when they left the servants at the bottom of the mountain, he says to them, we will go and worship, and we will return. He's saying, I do not get it, but I do get God. I know who I serve. I know the God that has provided for me before, and I know he will provide again. And they continue on the journey. And they're tired, and they're exhausted. And I imagine in this moment, he is crying out inside saying, God, would you just send somebody across my path? Just give me like a thumbs up. Let me know it's okay. Let me know I'm on the right path. Just somebody who will walk. This is what you said, isn't it, God? Should I quit? Do I turn back? This is really hard now, God. Like I'm getting really close. I've shown you so far. Is that enough? And he keeps going, and he keeps going. And he lays the stones for the altar. And he puts the fire, the wood on the top of the stones ready to light the fire. And he binds his son, the gift of God, to him and his wife, the longed for, dreamed of blessing of God, the thing that God promised them. He took them out, gave him this picture of what it could look like, the descendants that were tied up in this blessing that he was about to sacrifice. And he ties him up, he lays him on the altar, and he reaches for his sword. And I imagine him drawing it above his head when all of a sudden from heaven, Abraham. And in this moment, I expect the here I am was different. Here now I imagine it's here I am, God, I'm still here. I don't get it. I don't know what it is you're asking me to do. I have no idea, but I'm here. You see, down at the bottom of the mountain, it's like, yeah, God, I'm here. What are we doing? I'm ready for the miracle. What's the next thing? And at the top of the mountain, after the battle of his mind, the hardest decision he's ever had to make to this point, he's on his knees saying, here I am. Because the reality is that from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain, God said nothing. There was no clarification of the call on his life. Abraham had to just honor the last command. He faithfully remained focused to the call of God on his life. And God provided a ram in the thicket. You see, at the bottom of the mountain, the blessing over Abraham's life was that the descendants would be as numerous as the stars. But you see, point 4, our final point, and if the worship team are available, we're about to finish. The final point is that sometimes I think the test is not for punishment. That we need to flip the way that we think about things, because if we think of a test as a punishment, we might miss the opportunity for promotion. I didn't sit my driving test as a punishment. I sat my driving test as an opportunity for the freedom of the next stage in my life. You see, at the bottom of the mountain, yes, the words spoken over Abraham's life was that your descendants would be as numerous as the stars, but at the top of the mountain, this call on Abraham, the promise over Abraham was that, yes, they will be as numerous as the stars in the sky, but also the sand on the seashore. And not only that, but anywhere your descendants go, they will be a blessing. Maybe, just maybe today, that thing you have been questioning inside, should I just quit? The investment into my kids, I can't keep doing this. They keep breaking my heart. The marriage that you're finding so hard, that relationship with your boss, that work scenario, that call of God on your life. Maybe God called you to worship lead and all you're doing is leading the kids. You don't get it. Do I quit? Did I hear it right? We want to open an opportunity for anybody who feels that they're in that season that feels so hard that you want to quit. We want to pray for you today. We're going to worship together. But if you want prayer, I'll be honored to pray with you today. You see, today I want you to leave. Today I believe that God has asked me to say to somebody, don't quit yet. Maybe, just maybe, you are about to see the breakthrough in your life that God promised you. Just stay focused. Trust him with what he has entrusted you. Decide whether you're allowing too many voices to speak into your life in this time. Get in the presence of the King before God, on your knees, in private, reading your word, the love letter from heaven. Be careful the language that you speak over what you're facing. Speak faith, speak peace. Because maybe, just maybe today, you are so close to the breakthrough. And that's what we want to believe for you and with you today. Amen.